Welcome back. How to Wholesale, where we are going 90 days, helping 90 deals get done. Looking to JV with you guys, looking to answer your questions here live. It's your boy Daryl. Got my super awesome co-host Toddy virtual with us. Toddy, happy Wednesday. How's your Wednesday going?
Happy hump day. It's going good. Um, busy, busy, busy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So we had some motion today. We hired some new people, hired some cold callers, hired some acquisitions, dispo people, brought them on, got a contract, got a few JV deals. Like things are looking good, right? And we're here to just continue to provide value. Like it's you guys don't see behind the scenes. Like this is a tough business that we working on, and we just here to show you guys every part, right? So if you guys have any questions, as always, type them in the chat. We like to keep this interactive. We like to work with you guys and actually solve your problems. Type it in the chat. If you guys have deals that you want to submit, we have a new link that we're sending out right now. So if you had the old link saved, then you need to change it. Here I'm going to post it right here, and I'm actually going to post it in the description. In the YouTube description, it's going to be posted after. I didn't get a chance to post it before, but the link will be posted in the description when we get off of here. Now, we made an update to the list because we realized that you guys may need help closing deals too, right? Not just selling deals. So closing deals as well. If you guys are, oh shoot, if you guys have a seller that you need help closing, whether you just don't like closing, right? And you need help talking to sellers, or maybe you pitch an offer and they reject it, but you know it's a deal and you just can't get them down a little bit, right? We will help you. We have closers on our team. I'll jump on the phone, solve that problem. If it needs to be a creative, right? If you pitch creative and they're open to terms and you don't know how to explain terms, right? Like I can explain terms. I do that in my sleep, send them through. And then also, if you have deals that you want us to sell, you want us to dispo for you, we have we have buyers nationwide, and we'll help you move it as long as it's a deal, right? We've been getting deals, right? We've been getting some good deals, but a lot of the deals that we have been getting, it's actually doing deals a disservice by calling those things deals because they haven't been deals. They've been like, and we applaud y'all for putting the work in, right? Like, good job putting the work in, but you have to be able to determine, what is actually a deal and what is an overpriced piece of property, right? Like you can't. We had somebody. I don't know what their name was, but I'm gonna actually send them a Loom video on show them exactly why. But we had somebody who the property was just bought about a couple months ago, right? It was just bought a couple months ago, and they were asking for more than what it was sold for, literally 3 months ago. Like there's in no way is that a deal, right? Unless somebody's trying to wholesale it to us, something, right? But the ARV was a lot less than what they're trying to sell it for. So like things like that, we have to look out for. We have to be aware and see exactly what is a deal. Um, so yeah, Toddy, what? Yeah, exactly, Jeremiah. Just because you got the contract does not mean it's a deal, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So many people they say I have a what Toddy, let's talk about that. What's the difference between this may be simple to us, right? But what's the difference between a contract and a deal? How do you know?
Well, I guess I would say contract is just a contract, and a deal is something that someone would actually want to buy. So I guess
Oh,
it's the reason why it's so hard for people to determine that is because they're not buying, so they're like not taking the time to figure out what a buyer would want in X, Y, and Z market because every market is different, which is why it's really important to learn your market. Um, how is the sound, by the way? Does it sound crisp? No.
sounds a little broken up. It may be my Wi-Fi, but it sounds a little like choppy. Just a little
No, I
bit.
think my internet's been not doing really good today. I was having issues on all my calls today. But honestly, I would say the biggest thing is like starting from that street, what sold recently, how much did it sell for, and how does it compare to your property? And just keep going out from there. Try not to go out more than a half a mile. But like in some cities like Baltimore and Philly, you have to kind of stay on that block or on that in those 3 or 4 blocks in the vicinity. Another really good way to do it is to go on Google Earth and like drive that street so you can actually see like, okay, there's this comp that's for 200,000. Maybe it's 3 streets away, but the comp on my street is only 50,000. Why? Go on Google Earth and drive those streets because you might see that those 200,000 comps look completely different. They might have gates and be like really, really nice and brick and have big front yards and have garages where your subject property might only be 3 or 4 streets away, but it might just be a row home, that has no garage, that is in the hood. So you just have to really be cognizant of what a comp is, and learn to comp yourself is the most important thing. Really don't try to outsource comping because it's the most important thing. It's the only way you're going to know if a deal is. And if you try to like have someone else do it or do it on Zillow or you're really passing off the most important part. And if you were buying a property that you were going to have and keep, you would want to get an inspection, an appraisal. You would want to do all these things that most buyers are going to want to do. So before even getting it under contract, it's super important to know exactly what the buyers in that area are looking for and lock it up at a price that you can still sell it to a buyer. And I'm not the person who's going to say don't lock it up high because you can lock something up high and then get a price reduction once you figure out what buyers really want. But it's kind of tougher to do it like that, especially if the price reduction is going to be huge. You could have just got closer to that number up front.
1,000%. 1,000%. And I actually too, like, to go back to the question, I actually define a deal. I don't call it a deal until that money is in my pocket or in my bank account. Like, it's not a deal until the buyer comes through. It's not a deal until everything with title is good. It's a contract up until that point. So do not get it twisted, y'all. Make sure you guys run your numbers the right way and you like actually take your time because your money isn't made when you sell it. Your money is made when you buy it. So everybody's looking for a deal. You need to be able to find a deal. Like that's what wholesaling is. It's you being able to find and source an actual deal, right? So again, if you guys have what up, Randy? If you guys have deals that you want us to send, like we're not saying don't send anything over. Like we're actually will help you and show you. Like if you send something over, right, we will, and it's not a deal. We will. I know me personally. I will send a loom, right, showing exactly why this isn't a deal, and I'll show you the comps. I'll show you how that's done. Right. So send that over. Send your deals over. Hit me up on Instagram. Hit Toddy up, and let's help you guys out. Um. So yeah. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. Drop them in the chat. And honestly, the best way, in one of my opinion, to determine if this is actually a deal, right? Like we're not really worried as much as like ARV comps, right? We're not really using formulas. The most accurate way to make sure your numbers are right is seeing what buyers are actually buying for in that market. Right? Where are they buying properties that are very similar to yours? Like what price range are they at? And then on top of that, find you some buyers that are in that market and find you some buyers that you can trust, right? A buyer that isn't gonna honestly, if a buyer goes around your back and tries to go direct to the seller, most of the time it's not a real buyer, it's a wholesaler in general, right? So find you a real buyer who is actually looking for deals. And when you have a contract or when you have a lead that you're even working on before you even get under contract and you're just like close to those steps, you send it to them, send them the address and say, hey, what would you pay for this? Right. And a lot of times they'll give you a price. They'll tell you exactly what they'll pay for it. Now it's your job to go get it underneath that, right? Go get it as low as you can go now.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And what do you think about price reductions?
Price reductions, same thing, right? Like you need to know exactly what your buyer is willing to pay. I don't mind getting a contract. I don't like to go into into the deal. I don't like to go into the deal expecting like just with the intention of getting a price reduction, right? So I'm not just gonna lock up a deal high, saying, okay, I'm gonna go in there and get him a price, get him down anyways, right? I know a lot of people do that. I personally think that is unethical. That's just me. But I do think if you think your numbers are close and you just lock it, I'll give my closers the green light to just lock it up, right? Say go lock it up if we're close, and then we go find buyers. And again, same thing. We ask them that question: What would you pay for this, right? And if they come under if our highest offer is lower than what we have it locked up for, we'll we'll go back once we have that buyer confirmed, right? We'll go back with the seller and then we'll get the price reduction. So it's all about having your buyer locked in first. Because one thing that you don't want to do is go back and get a price reduction when you don't have a buyer in line, right? So now you go get a price reduction and you still go find another buyer, right? And you can't, but if you can't find a buyer, now you just wasted that person's time multiple times and you're just playing with these people's livelihoods at this point, right? Like people
100%.
are expecting to get this. They have plans for this money, and you're wasting their time and yours. So go in there
Definitely.
with be ethical with it. Don't go in there with the intentions
I
to.
agree. No, I totally agree with the whole price reduction thing. It's funny talking about comps because sometimes there is no comps. And I think that's when people really get twisted up because it's like, well, the property that I'm looking at is bigger or it's on a bigger lot, or there's these things that the sellers will say to make you think it's worth more. But on the flip side, when you're trying to sell it, especially if you're trying to sell it to a homeowner and their agent is advising them on what house to buy, you never want to buy the most expensive house in a regular neighborhood. That's like opposite of what realtors advise buyers to buy. They advise them to buy the cheapest house in the nicest neighborhood because you have the most room for appreciation. You never want to buy the most expensive house on the street. So buying a house with the intention that it's bigger and you just think it's going to comp better is whew, is really a bad idea because you get stuck in these. I've seen so many people get stuck in these deals where they think that, well, my house is 700 square feet bigger than the best comp, so I'm gonna do price per square foot and I'm gonna make this much. Well, and the bad thing is some agents will advise you to do that because they just want to get the listing. You really got to learn what a comp is. And like for me personally, if I'm buying something and the my deal is larger, I still want to comp it whatever the ARV is, even if it's smaller. I don't want to do price per square foot and that higher. I'd rather get a better deal because they say you make your money when you buy. So if you make your money when you buy and then you buy it bad because you think you just the gem of the neighborhood, it's not going to work well in your favor. And the biggest problem, especially if you're flipping, is those holding costs add up, and then you can't sell it, and then your lender could foreclose on your home. If you live in a small town, it could really mess up your reputation. So I'd rather pass up on a deal that could have been good um, than do a deal that's a question mark. Like, never do a question mark deal. And if it's a wholesale, you're a little bit luckier because you have time to exit it. But like Daryl said, you definitely don't want to waste sellers' time. That also will give you a bad reputation. Um, so when you work with agents, make sure they're experienced agents have worked with flippers and home buyers. They know what home buyers want and they know what it takes to flip those properties in those neighborhoods. Every neighborhood is different. Every market is different. I think the cool thing about being virtual is we see so many different markets that we're able to spot trends. Like I can tell some neighborhoods or cities are street by street and block by block just by looking at a few comps. Like, oh wow, that's 5 streets away and it's a luxury house, but 5 streets away is the hood. Now I know
Yeah.
that anything in that city, I need to look at comps on that street that look the same, siding with siding, brick with brick, etc. So it's really important. Those little things make a big difference. Don't cross major freeways, don't cross major streets, and really Google Earth inside the city because you'll learn so much just by looking at the style of homes. You might have like nice Spanish style homes, and then you might have little siding homes that are 1,000 square feet, like when we went to San Antonio for the growth event. It would be like these nice homes on a golf court, and then 3 streets later, it was like, whoa, all of the foundations are there's like holes in every foundation we drove by, and there's people sitting outside, like you can tell you entered the hood, but it's only 3 streets away.
We were literally just looking at a property yesterday where in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where on one side of the street the houses are all run down, torn down, and literally right on the other side of the street, these were all developed houses within the past like 10 years. All houses look the exact same. It was like a completely different neighborhood. All right. I was so surprised when I just turned around on the street view. That's why it's important to like do your due diligence. And please, y'all, if you lock up a deal that is a question mark and when you start marketing it to buyers and you can't find a buyer, please operate within your inspection period. Like if it's not a deal, just cancel within the inspection period. I don't understand why people, and I've done it a few times, but I don't understand why I did it. Like it was kind of just I had a lot going on, maybe, but you just don't cancel within your inspection period or get an extension or go back and get a price reduction because that's really what these sellers are that's what they really don't like. That's what gives a lot of wholesalers bad names, right? Like we get contracts, you get contracts, and you just hold on to it. Like people don't even market it sometimes, right? And you don't put the earnest money in, and sellers just like what happened, right? Like where are we at? And
Like 2 weeks.
yeah, it's crazy, and I just don't get it. Like why'd you even get the contract in the first place? So if you're going to get a deal that's a question mark and you're gonna try to find a buyer for it, if you can't find a buyer for it within your inspection period, that's why we give ourselves the inspection period. If you can't find a buyer, operate within it and either cancel the deal, get an extension, or get a price reduction, or pay your earnest money. Right? It's simple. So we got some questions on the side. I don't know if this is a question. Brandon says spoke to a foreclosure seller today, going through the same thing. She was crying on the phone. It's a dirty game. Nah, for real, for real.
I'm a
Hi,
foreclosure specialist and a short
what
sale
do you say?
specialist if you need help. I said I'm a foreclosure and short sale specialist if you need help.
Let's get it. Let's get it. The B Squad says, "Have you ever tried prop wire? If so, what do you think?" I haven't used it, but we've talked about prop wire a bunch of times on this. We actually do use it. We pull lists on prop wire. It's free lists. Why wouldn't you try? It's free. Go try prop wire and let us know how it works. Randy says, I talked to a foreclosure. He has 10 days before he goes to auction. He was trying to stonewall me. How to get past the stonewall? Hmm. It's a good question, Randy. Honestly, bro, you need to one, right? I say this all the time about pre-foreclosure sellers. One of the most important questions you need to figure out when you're talking to them is do they want to keep the house or do they want to sell it? Because not many people ask them this question, right? And a lot of people they actually want to keep their house or at least want to try to keep their house. Even if they can't keep it, we need to be able to move ourselves out of the box from everybody else who's calling them because they think everybody else is calling them is trying to take their house, right? So I asked them one of the first questions I asked pre-foreclosure sellers is, "Would you do you even want to sell this or do you want to keep it? Because I can help you do both." And if they say they want to keep it, I'm going to show them these steps on how they can actually keep it. Now, 9 times out of 10, they don't qualify for these steps, but at least I've tried and at least I pointed them in that direction. And one of the last steps of them saving their house from foreclosure is me buying it. Right. So I don't talk about me buying the house until we go through all these other steps of them keeping it, if that's what they want to do. Right. So maybe, and I don't know because I don't have much context, but maybe his stonewall comes up from him thinking that you're going to just try to take his equity, right? Maybe you talked about buying his house. Maybe he thinks, you're like everybody else. But one thing that I would say too is I've been talking about this all week, honestly. It's one of the 4 agreements, right? We were actually talking about this Toddy. Never take anything personal, right? These foreclosure sellers, these people who are going through auctions, they have a lot on their plate. they're going through a lot, right? They have bill collectors calling them. They have if they're behind on their mortgage, chances are they owe other people money, right? And it seems like everybody who is calling them is trying to take something from them. So they have a lot going on, right? And not even to think about how did they get in the situation in the first place? How did they get into to the fact that they're losing their house, right? Like they're going through a lot. So if they're lashing out on you, if they're being a dick to you, it's not because it's you. It's because of their situations, because of their circumstances. So keep that in
I would say
mind. Would you say, Toddy?
question would be, I said my biggest question would be like, how are they stonewalling? Because there is a chance that, like, what is the stonewall? Are they saying like, oh no, we got it taken care of? Because there's a chance that maybe they do,
Yeah.
especially if it's not a huge due amount. Like some people just don't care until that date is really coming up and then they actually pay.
Nah, without a doubt.
Like just
Without,
because someone's missed payments and is in foreclosure, it doesn't really mean they're motivated. I know plenty of people who have missed a lot of mortgage payments with money sitting in their bank account because they were just trying to like make a different play or whatever. So, like you said, try to come at it from a different angle for sure, and see if they already have it taken care of. Then you won't feel like you're wasting your time on that lead.
without a doubt. And somebody said in the chat, Barshawn said, what are the steps if they want to keep the house? So there's a few steps, right? They can apply for a loan modification. If they want to get a loan modification, they must stay in their house, right? Like that's what it says in the paperwork. They're filing it so they can stay in the house. And what that is doing is that's just pushing their arrears to the back of the loan. Right now, you can take over property and buy a property when they do a loan modification. Just be careful doing it. But there's some stipulations that they need to meet and criteria that they need to meet in order for them to actually qualify for it. So I would reach out to Toddy. She's a foreclosure specialist, as she was just saying. She can stop the auction and she can show how we can get this loan mod. They can file for bankruptcy, right? That doesn't
They can get a loan mod and keep the house.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they can get a loan mod and keep the house.
I thought you were saying get a loan mod and sell a house.
They can do both. They can do both.
What are
They
they gonna
can.
sell? Why would they get a loan mod? They could just sell.
So I bought a house where we helped the seller get a loan mod. And the reason why I directed her that we had to get a loan mod was so I could actually pay her. Instead of me coming in and paying all these arrears, it wasn't a deal for me, right? I wasn't I couldn't even pay her. I couldn't buy the deal at all because her arrears were too high. So I said, if I can make it so that I can get these arrears pushed to the back of the loan, and I can walk you through that, right? Would you be able to do this deal with me, and I can get you some money, actual money to walk away with, right? So that's the reason why they would want to get a loan mod. A lot of times the deal just doesn't work with all those arrears in the front. So if we could push
Oh
them
no,
to the
I'm
back,
like
and
just selling it cash.
yeah, cash is a different story. Cash, I'm
Arrears
talking
will be.
creative finance. It's a little different. It's a little different for sure. But cash, obviously, you can just sell it. Yeah,
Check your state laws and consult a lawyer. We're not attorneys.
for sure, for sure. Consult with an attorney all the time. This is not legal advice.
This is
Um,
opinion. This is
fa-
one man's opinion.
facts. You don't do as I say. Yeah, however that phrase
Don't do
goes.
what we
But,
do.
yeah.
Figure it out for you.
uh, but another way that they can buy time, right? This doesn't stop the auction; it just extends it. They can file for bankruptcy. They can file for Chapter 13. It will extend it, and they will have to pay. Right? It's not free, but and it will also hit their credit, but it's not as hard as a foreclosure, and it gives them time to actually maybe get paid. Um, they can, and somebody said, Barshawn said, will they qualify if they are in default? Yeah, the loan mod really doesn't check for their credit. It checks more for their like their income, how much are they making, and then it's like, what was the situation that put them in this current state, right? Like you have to have like you have to like send like a hardship letter or whatever, and it has to be like really sad, and they have to understand like why they actually are in foreclosure in the first place. Um, there's a bunch of different ways. They can get a personal loan, right? They can do a short sale, they can list it on the market, and then at the end, then I'll talk about buying it cash. If cash doesn't work, then I talk about buying it creatively. So there's different ways. You can also file like a TRO, a temporary restraining order on the bank, right? You need time for that. There's a lot. There's like 8 to 9, maybe 10 ways to stop an auction. Those are a few. But again, contact an attorney. I'm not an attorney. Do as you please with this information. Don't tell them you got it from me. But it's all legal in a way for the most part. What other questions y'all got? Other questions y'all got?
Oh, Daryl's interview. I was just talking about an interview. I've been interviewing so many people. Internet. Oh, he's back.
I'm back. Is
Back
he
at
talk? Is he about to talk? He's about to talk trash.
okay, so Daryl's internet messed up. I said Daryl's interview messed up because I was just talking to someone about the interviews. I'll tell you, my brain is so fried today. All the addresses are like in my brain and of like different people's names, and it's like so much. But um, I would say if they want to keep the house, also they could just sell it sub two to an investor and ask them if they could just stay there and keep renting it, do a lease back. They could ask someone to just pay off the arrears and get back on track. They could get a loan. It's a lot of ways you could do it.
For sure. I do recommend though as well. Like if you are gonna buy a house sub two, one of I personally would not lease it back to somebody who can't make their payments already, right? Like that's like a sign right there that they're not gonna be able to pay you back unless like they can show you, even if they can show you like money, like this somebody shows me money, I would still be hesitant to lease back to somebody who is in pre-foreclosure, right? So one thing that you can direct them to is maybe have a one of their friends, like ask them if one of their friends will let them do something like that. But I wouldn't personally take over, like let somebody lease it back there in a pre-foreclosure. What are the
Brandon, I'm sorry, Barshawn, what are the benefits of the seller to use creative strategies? Well, if they want to get the price they want, if they want to avoid paying capital gains taxes right now, um, if they're already renting it and they don't mind monthly payments, but they really don't want to do the maintenance anymore, because when we take stuff over creatively, we're now responsible for all the maintenance, repairs, all the updates and rehab that needs to be done, getting it rented to better tenants. Like we become the new owners. So they get to hands-free make cash flow. They get to get the price they want, but they really shouldn't get because the house is messed up. There's a ton of benefits. And then most of the time, um, investors who want to do it just kind of want to save money on taxes. They don't want to pay a bunch of capital gains taxes. Also, people on fixed incomes, Medicare, Medicaid, in a nursing home, things like that. They can't make this big lump sum of money or they'll lose those things. So I had a really good portfolio deal that was creative back in the day. Um, a year and a half ago, where the guy, he was on a lot of government help. He was older, he was getting disability, he was getting so much stuff that he had like 10 houses, so he couldn't sell them all cash. So he had this crazy strategy um, to sell them all like overpriced but creatively, and he got it done at least on 3 or 4 of the houses that I know of.
No, for sure. Another benefit is, especially a lot that we're seeing now, right? Like a lot of people don't have equity. A lot of people bought their houses in 2020, 2021, 2022 at the height of the market. And now in 2023, they don't have the same equity that they had a couple years ago. And if they need to sell for whatever reason, they have to move, they got transferred, they especially like think about the people who who were first time home buyers who use FHA loans and people who use VA loans. And they have absolutely no equity now because they put down a low down payment. They put down 3% or 0% down. And we've seen a lot of people buying their first homes in these past couple of years. And now they need to sell, right? There's people who need to sell. So a lot of times, since they have no equity, and they want to list it with the realtor because the property's in really good condition. They have to pay to sell because, like I said, they have zero equity, right? So they have to come out of pocket. And what I tell sellers on the phone is, why would I go get a bank loan to pay off your bank loan? Only person who wins in that is the bank. So instead of me paying off your loan, why don't you just let me take this loan over and pay you, make you my bank? Right now, you get paid. I don't have to pay that big bad bank, and that's a great benefit to them because now they're getting paid, their real estate agent's getting paid, we get a house creatively. It's a true win-win-win situation.
Win-win-win at 7-Eleven, make a wish.
Make a wish. Okay, I made my wish. My boy Q said, do you recommend to lease the seller in a hybrid deal?
What's a hybrid deal?
So a hybrid deal is a sub two seller finance, like combined. So you're taking a property over sub two, but the seller also has equity. So you're paying their equity in a second position seller finance note.
Wow, that's complicated.
Not really. So it's like, okay, so they have a mortgage. Say they owe $100,000. Say the house is worth $200,000. So they have $100,000 in equity, right? So instead of just buying it out, we'll take over that $100,000 and then pay them their $100,000 equity in seller finance payments. Does that make sense? You sure? Because if you don't get it, they don't get it.
I get it. It just sounds like it could have just been a good cash deal, but I don't know. Who am I to say that?
Probably. What if the seller absolutely needs $200,000 and he would not sell to anybody else? He won't sell at all unless he gets $200,000. But he would sell if he gets that price, and he'll
In
take money
terms.
in terms.
So in this scenario, though, the mortgage payments plus his second mortgage payments have to be less than the area rent.
For sure. For sure. You have the cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we tell them. I don't mind paying you the price you want, but I need the terms that I need to
So
make this work.
that second one could be $100 a month because it's whatever you're making it.
We have some that are $50 a quarter.
So let me ask you this then: how do you guys handle the balloon payments? Because obviously you're not going to pay $100 a month for 2,000 years. So
Yeah, so what we do is we're only ballooning them on their equity, right? So we'll have say they want a 7-year balloon. Perfect. The first stipulation is that in 7 years, the property must appraise for what I'm buying it for today, right? So if it doesn't, it's going to get extended another 2 years automatically. And third, we're just going to pay them off their $100,000. So all the money that we paid them over these next 7 years, every time we pay every time we pay the seller, right? His equity, his equity is going down a little bit, right? We're paying down our principal every single month, right? Because if you're a good negotiator, you'll get 0% interest, especially if you're buying at market value, right? So you're just paying that principal down every single month for the next 7 years, however many years.
his extra $100,000, the
Extra
second
100,
mortgage.
second
Okay.
mortgage. Yep.
Okay.
And when that time comes to balloon them out, we're keeping that mortgage in place for the life of the loan. I'm not.
Yeah, but let's say you're paying him $200. Okay, no, let's say you're paying him $1,000 a month. That's only $12,000 a year. Now 7 years has gone by, and you've paid 12 times 7, 4, 1, 2. So you paid 37 grand. So you
Well, if it's a thousand
63,000.
dollars, it's $1,000 a month times 12. How long we said the
2,000
balloon was?
a month. 7-year balloon.
7 years, 7-year balloon, right? So 12,000 times 7 is 84K. So
Okay.
we owe him $16,000 in 7 years.
So now
right?
the house just has to appraise for more than.
Doesn't even need to at that point. I'll just pay him $16,000, whether it's out of my pocket, whether I get a private lender, because it's only 16K, right? I'm not paying off that original $100,000. That loan's going to stay in place until I pay it off in total with the cash flow, or
Yeah, but in
unless
7 years, won't the house need to be rehabbed? And then now
probably
you're going to spend 60,000 or something on that.
I could pull equity out of the house, just like I can pull equity out of it. I can refinance it. By that time, once I
So
pay
are
off
you
his,
saying the house needs to appraise in 7 years for what? The value you bought it for today? Because isn't it already going to appraise for today since he has.
exactly. We that usually only makes sense in like if somebody wants a short balloon, like 5 years. We'll just it's just in there so we're not forced to refinance out of a bad deal, right? Because say the property doesn't appreciate in 7 years. Say in 7 years the market crashes and this house is not worth $200,000 anymore. Now
Right,
I'm
like
obligated.
Cleveland.
Exactly. Now I'm not obligated to have to pay him out. I can wait another 2 years, and if the market goes up, then the property appreciates. Then we can pay him off.
Yeah, why did he say I'm a blue seller? I just like to try to poke holes in Daryl's theories.
Rarely happens.
I get it. And I do see the benefits for the seller and I do see the benefits for the investor. Personally, I would definitely want a house that didn't need repairs though. Because I feel like if a house needed a full rehab or something like that, like yeah, I'm buying it for today's value. 7 years is a long time, but it's really not that long. Like, yeah, you might increase depending on the market, you might increase equity, but the chances of increasing 50%, 100% equity in 7 years is not I guess it's the market.
I agree with you 1,000%. But remember as well, if we're paying, if we're paying
Like when
that
did you
se-
make money? You're cash flowing to pay him off. Then when you're done cash flowing, you probably have to rehab. I feel like where
so
am I making money in this deal? Unless I'm spending the cash flow from the renter every month. But it's like if I spent that, then when I rehab it, I'm gonna have to come out of pocket. So like where am I making money until after the seller's all the way paid off? I've refinanced, then maybe after 10 years I'll make money or something.
that's real estate. That's real estate. This is a long game, right? We're playing for the long run, right? So if you cash flow, you have to remember every single month, if we're paying the seller $1,000 a month with 0% interest, our equity is building with every single payment. Even if the property doesn't increase in value, even if the property stays at 200,000 in 7 years, I still have $100,000 in equity, right? I can put work into it
Like
and
a
I can
bank account, but better.
exactly. It's a bank account, right? We're building equity with literally every single payment. So you're making money there. You're also saving money, depreciation.
So I'm a
That's
new wholesaler. Is my time better spent trying to do this or do cash deals?
your time is better spent doing cash deals for sure.
When should
Because
I start doing this?
honestly, I started doing it when I found a problem that I couldn't solve. I came across a problem that I couldn't solve. Honestly, it all works, right? Like if you want to start with sub two or seller finance, you can get deals very fast, but it all depends on what you're looking to accomplish, right? Are you
And
looking
you
to
can
build
wholesale
a
them.
deal? You can wholesale them for sure, right? But it'd be a lot faster, in my opinion, to wholesale a cash deal, wholesale good cash deals. But this market is different, right? This market is shifting because, like I was explaining earlier, there's a lot of people who have no equity today that they need to sell creatively. And if nobody else can solve their problem but you, your competition is a lot lower, right? There's a lot less competition. I mean, today everybody wants to sell creatively, but if you could actually do it, if everybody wants to buy creatively today, but if you're actually good at it, like most people suck at it. If you're actually good at it, you have an advantage over everybody else, right? So I would say I wouldn't say any way is easier, right? Because like if you they both have their problems, they both have their problems. Creative deals may take a little longer to close at times, but so do some cash deals, right? But if you put your attention all into one and master it, you'll be great. And with that being said, I think you should master cash first because most times creative doesn't work or people don't understand creative like the reason why you're bringing creative up, unless you show them why cash doesn't work. So I recommend starting off with cash 1,000%.
Oh, can I give a quick hack because somebody said this? I cannot determine what a deal is, and then you can talk about this because the baby's screaming. I'm gonna run real quick, but so okay, what determine what a deal is? So I want to give you guys a really super simple way to determine what a deal is if you need to like make an offer, and this is like dummy proof, okay? And this is not a good idea to do all the time, but if you have no other way to do it, you go in the neighborhood and you look at the house that sold for the least amount, very least amount. And then you say, "Hey, John, I see 123 Main Street sold for $15,000. Does that sound about right?" And then they're going to let you know if it's a terrible offer or if it's an okay offer. And it's just price anchoring. And like obviously if the lowest prices are like 20,000, 20,000, 25,000, don't go for the one that's like 2,000, go for the 20,000. Go for the least of the most common numbers. Like if there's one outlier, that might have just been a totally tear down or land or something. So don't go for the one outlier, but like if you see 20, 20, 21, 23, 25, 80, 60, 40, like don't look at the 80, 60, 40, go all the way to the 20 and say, "Hey, XYZ address sold for 20,000. What do you is that does that sound about right to you?" And when you say does that sound about right to you, the seller's going to let you know if it sounds about right or if it's terrible. If they say, "Yeah, that's about right," then at least you anchored to the lowest. And now you know there is people buying up here. So never go for the 50 or the 60. Like the thing is we want these deals to be deals. And that's why we waste so much time. Like imagine if you waste your time on five maybe deals a month for 12 months. You could have gotten tons of actual deals if you would have just said, "This is not a deal, let me move forward." So don't waste time. Price anchor with the house in that zip code. And again, just make sure that you're staying as close as you can to that house, same bedroom, same bathroom, same square feet. Go for the lowest one and anchor there. If you're just absolutely like, I cannot figure out what a deal is, just go for the lowest one, throw it out there in a way that is not you making the offer. So if they get mad, it's like, well, I'm not offering that. I just see that. I'm just looking on the internet and telling you what I saw. And I feel like I did prove my point too. So whatever.
I
I'm just kidding.
guess.
I'll be right back though.
All right, cool. So Barshawn said, and Toddy just gave some sauce. Like if you didn't notice that, like if you didn't peep that, she just gave some sauce. Call the sellers and anchor, right? By just asking that simple question. Barshawn, you says in sub two, do you need the seller to pull out equity? So I have never done this, right? I've never pulled out equity in any of my deals yet. So you may want to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, right? But I'm pretty positive that I'm right. I'm like 95% positive that I'm right. When you have the deed, you can pull out the equity in your property, right? Like you can pull out a home equity line of credit. You can pull out the equity because you own this deed, right? This is your property. So just like you can refinance you without the seller, you can pull out equity for sure. You don't need the seller for that. Because essentially, it's what you're going to go get a new loan, right? If you're going to refinance, you're going to go get a new loan from the bank, and they don't care who's on the original loan. They just care what the house is worth. So if your property is worth it and you can pull out equity, normally if you have equity in the property, you should be able to pull it out of your sub too. You said, how do you get the deed? When you're buying the house subject to, that's you buying the property on a warranty deed, right? So you may not have the actual physical deed from the bank until you pay the property off, right? But you have deed, title, and deed to this house when you buy it sub two. You actually close on it, right? The only thing that's not in your name is the mortgage. So you own the property, you own the deed, you pay the taxes, you pay the insurance. Like this is your house, but the mortgage is the only thing not in your name. The debt is the only thing that's not in your name, and that remains in the seller's name, right? So a lot of people they not saying that you're doing this, but a lot of people they think that the deed and the mortgage are all one thing, right? They're all intertwined in one, and that's just not the case. The deed and the mortgage are two different things. You can own the deed, you can own the property, and you can not own the debt, right? It's just like subleasing a car, right? Or subleasing an apartment, right? I literally just I just like the apartment that I just lived in before I moved here, I subleased it from somebody because their name was on the actual like mortgage, not the mortgage, it was on the actual lease, right? So it was their name on the line, everything like that. But I lived in the property, right? So like I controlled the property. Um, just like that, or like a car, right? If you do like if you lease a car to somebody else or sublease a car to somebody else, they own that car, right? The debt is just in your name, right? Like there's a website called like leasetrader.com where people are selling their leases to you, right? Like it's your car, you're running your it's you, that's you, right? It's just their name on the debt. That makes sense. Let me know. Let me know, B. What other questions y'all got? Y'all asking some good questions. Let me know, y'all, if y'all got questions about creative finance, drop them in the chat. Sub two, seller finance, innovation agreements, land contracts. What is the worst? Q said, what is the worst case scenario that can come up from the seller side in sub two deal? It's a good question. There there's the main thing that could happen in a sub two deal is if the loan gets called due. That's the absolute worst thing that can happen to a seller. If you get the due on sale clause on you and it called on you, and most people are asking if you don't know what the due on sale clause is, that's the bank asking for their money back. Is the bank asking for you to pay them what they lent to you plus the interest on the property because you did something wrong, right? You did something with the insurance wrong. Maybe you missed a payment. You missed so many payments. Maybe it's a small bank and the bank just caught on to it, right? Like there's something that went on your side that made the bank call the loan, and all that is there's a few ways to get around it. There usually it doesn't happen, right? Because banks are such big corporations that they're not watching each and every file to make sure to see if the deed has been transferred or not. Usually they only do it if you flag them, right? If you get on their radar somehow. So the due on sale clause it's something to worry about. It's their worst case scenario, but it's not the end of the world, right? If the due on sale clause gets called, there's a few ways that you can get out of it. Like I said, the bank is just asking for their money back. So one thing you can do is refinance if you have equity, right? If the property, even if you don't have equity, you have to come out of pocket a little bit, but it's going to be less than what you're coming out of pocket if you have to pay it all together, right? You can sell the property. Hi, Toddy. You can sell the property. Um, Again, if you have equity, so you have to buy right. You can refinance, right? There's a few ways, and another way, the easiest way to do it without having to come out of money if you don't have any equity is you deed it back to the seller. All right, so you put the deed back in the seller's name, and then you rebuy it from them on a land contract. Now this is getting a little high level, right? So again, you'll deed it back to them. If this is if the bank calls the loan due, which rarely happens, right? It rarely happens. But if the loan gets called due, you would deed it back to the seller. The property would go back in their name, and then you buy it back from them on a land contract. So a land contract is the same thing. You're buying it sub two, but the deed just stays in the seller's name. You have all control of the property. You can run it. They cannot. They don't own it. You own it, right? It's just their name on the deed. And until you fulfill that contract that you have with them, that's when the deed goes back into your name. So, Hatari, you have a question? I can't hear you. No.
Hello.
Yeah. There we go.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I know one. There were two of the sellers. They did a sub two deal, and two different properties, and the people kept the down payment and took the house back.
They hold on. What happened? The seller. They
Yeah,
did a. They did a seller finance.
they did a sub two.
They did a sub two. How did the seller
Mhm.
keep the down payment and take the house back?
The seller did something and got the deed back,
The seller did what?
they got the deed put back in their name.
How?
I don't really know the details, but two houses this person bought sub two, and the seller. I don't know if they did something in title or what happened, but they were able to get the house back. in their own name.
And that, my friends, is why you have the right paperwork in place when you're doing creative deals. So if you don't know how to creative deal, you don't know where to do the paper, where to get the paperwork, hit somebody up who actually does, right? Because there's a lot of crazy stuff. I don't know what the situation was. I know a
I think it
seller
was
could
like
never,
something in the paperwork.
yeah, I know a seller could never do that to us, right? Because we
Why
have the
not?
right paperwork. Because I have the right paperwork. I have a 20-page
What's the
contract.
paperwork? Not what's the paperwork, like give it to us, but what is preventing a seller from telling the bank, or not just telling the bank, but doing something that could get, the deed back in their name, because the mortgage is still in their name.
That's a great question. So in the paperwork, we actually have a sub two addendum, right? That tells that the seller signs and they initial line by line, and it's tell one of the lines in there. This is why it's important to understand your contract. One of the lines in there states that this seller will not go to the bank and do anything to call the loan due. And if they do, we are allowed to walk away from the property and the bag is on them, right? We keep our down payment and we put a lien on the property and the bag's on them, right?
How
So
can you
we're
keep
getting
the down payment if they already got it?
what do you say?
How can you keep the down payment if they already
We
got
can't
it?
keep the down payment, but we can put a lien on the property and they have to deal with the bank. They have to pay the bank off.
Okay. Okay.
So it'd be a loss on us, but it would be a bigger loss on them if they can't do anything with the property.
This is hilarious. Mackie's watching this YouTube video. He just commented, Tadi is my mom. I call her mommy.
What's up, Mackie? That's funny. I can't see that. Dang, I wish I could see that. I would have highlighted it. Barshawn said, is the 70% rule in wholesaling still valid?
Sure, in certain in markets where the 70% rule, but definitely not across the board. There's some places where you can get it at 50% and people will. I mean, and then ARV is so, subjective. So it's the true ARV. The reason about the 70% rule is to be able to refinance at 70, 75% and not have money left in the deal. That's the only reason. Um, and that's like if you're just trying to burr. Um, so yes
And
and
this
no.
is
I don't think that that's a really good way to comp a deal.
Yeah, we talked about that a whole bunch of times in these past 4 days. We want to verify our. We don't want to rely on formulas. We want to rely on comps that have sold, cash comps that have sold, as is comps. Um, Not really the ARV comps. And again, go find a buyer in the area that is actually buying and ask them what their criteria is, what they're looking to get their order, and then go find it.
And you can see that by literally going to PropStream, going in the zip code, looking at cash sales in the last 90 days, and see what are people actually buying those Bed Bath Square Foot same style of home for. And that's the number, that's the number of buyers will buy for based on condition, terrible as is renovated. And really looking at it like that is way better because everything, look at it from the eyes of the buyer, pretend to be the buyer, you know, and it'll be so much more clear. Honestly, watching Bigger Pockets, because Bigger Pockets has a lot of advice for people who are buying rentals and buying flips. If you watch that, you'll start to get in the mind of a buyer, and then it'll be so much easier to wholesale because you'll be able to know what a buyer needs. Understanding rehab costs too is really important. Going on Home Depot and typing in laminate flooring, like stuff like that, and you start to realize how expensive these things get, you can kind of get into the mind of a buyer better. The 70% rule is like very, very, um, I don't want to say random, but it's like, it's just not every deal does not fit that criteria. Just like every place, 1% rule doesn't everywhere, 70% doesn't work everywhere. A 10 cap isn't the same in Cleveland and Miami. Like, every market is different. You got to learn what people want in your market and then base it on that formula or that buy price for sure.
1,000%. 1,000%. Um, Anna, Anna says, when will you when will you know to offer creative finance as a novice investor? Also, did y'all learn creative finance from experience after going through cold calls, or did y'all learn through resources? So to answer the first question, you only want to, so creative only works for certain situations. It does not work for everybody, right? People, there's three reasons why somebody would not sell on creative finance. That's because either they need all the money up front, right? They have to go buy a boat, they have to go pay medical expenses, they have to go move, they need this money up front. The second reason is you suck at explaining it. You need to get better at sales. You need to be able to explain and articulate what you're trying to get across better. If a kindergartner cannot understand what you're talking about, so Mackie, if you're watching, I'm gonna need you to explain sub two after this. If a kindergartner cannot explain what you're talking about, then you're just not doing it right. They'll never say yes, right? And the third reason is they're just not motivated at all. So with that being said, you don't want to just go out there and just offer terms to everybody. You have to actually find out what their situation is, what they're going through, what they're looking to accomplish. And if cash does not work, if you already offer cash and you tell them where you would need to be at for cash and it doesn't work for them, if they need higher and they still need to sell, then you can pitch terms, right? Then you can say, okay, well, if I can come up to that price, I can't come up to your price cash, but if I can come up to that price, would you take terms? Oh, what's terms? Right? And you get them interested in it. If you don't know how to explain it, say, hey, I'm more of the cash person on my team. I can get the terms person to talk to you, our creative person to talk to you, but it's pretty much just financing the house. Right. Um, but you don't want to just throw it out there. You want to figure out what their problem is and what they're actually looking to accomplish, and make sure your solution is solving that problem.
So funny that you said a kindergartner because if a kindergartner can explain what a mortgage is, I'm going to be so
Not really with the mortgages, right? But just the if like if you're using too many words, if you're over talking, if if you're over explaining, most times people aren't going to understand you, right? So when I say a kindergartner needs to understand, you have to be able to tell
impressed.
stories. No, no, I got you, but like some people may really be thinking that, right? So like you have to be able to tell stories and literally get somebody to understand and actually be willing and open to listening to you, because otherwise they'll never say yes.
For sure. Yeah. Um, and what was that thing that you always say that if you're explaining, you're doing it wrong, you need to be telling them with a
Selling,
story, right?
selling, telling. Selling is not telling.
Yeah, I like when you always say that to the people in the sales calls. If you're telling them, if you're explaining to them, you're losing them. They're like checked out. If you're telling them a story of why it worked for someone else, then now you're engaging them
Yeah. And they get that credibility and that trust that you actually can solve their problem, because you just told them a story on how you solve somebody else's problem.
So, I mean, I don't want to take too much time, but can you like tell us how you would do a story real quick? Like, say I'm someone and I'm like, well, what is creative? What do you mean I'm gonna become the bank? Like, I don't get what you're talking about.
So all they can literally rewind. And when I was explaining it to you earlier, I told a story, right? Like just like that, how we just talk about another situation. We so when I first started, right now it's a lot easier because I just tell stories that I've actually done, right? Like these are real
Right.
stories now. These are like, because you come across the same thing a lot of the times. Like this game does not change, even for like the reason why people want to sell. Like it's all the same. So you can come up with a story for every single situation. Eventually, you're gonna go through every single situation, so you will have stories just in your back pocket. But when I was starting off,
Mhm.
I would literally make stories up based off of what they would tell me. So if somebody told me they were going through pre-foreclosure because they lost their job, I would say, "Oh my goodness, it's so crazy because I actually just helped Tadi just stop her auction last week. I was on the phone with her, she lost her job, and we were able to solve her problem by stopping the auction and getting her paid rather than her losing the house." And right there, I just came up with a third party story about somebody else that it just made the situation sound the same as theirs. I came up with, like, I used to make calls in a virtual office. Actually, we still do. I was making calls all day in the dog pound virtual office. So if you guys are not in the dog pound, hit this link right here.
Ouch.
Join the dog pound. We got 700 people in there. So make sure y'all jump in there and get some calls in. But I would sit in the virtual office and I would just pick somebody's name that was in the office and use them. So I bought a whole bunch of houses from from Keston. Keston was in here earlier. You don't know how many houses I bought from Keston just because we're sitting in there and I see Keston looking right at me while I'm on the call. I said, I actually just bought Keston's house last week, just like this.
That's
Right. Like,
funny.
so you don't have to actually go through it. You can make up a story right then and there. And then as you go through these situations, you'll be able to tell the stories a lot more smoother because they actually happen. It's real. And it's the last question. We will bounce after. Well, it's two more questions. Barshawn said, when you're on the phone with the seller, how do you justify a lowball offer? Role play, yeah, go, bro. We role play every single morning in the Dog Pound Discord, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Jump in there and get better. We'll talk about how to do that. Shout out my boy Brandon Williams, B Will, and Evan. They run those every day. They are trained by me, like, personally, and they point y'all in the right direction, right? And I was even in there this morning, a little bit, right? So jump into Dog Pound Discord and role play and learn how to present these offers the right way so that a seller doesn't come at you sideways. You said, what's your favorite creative method? Anyone that gets the job done, anyone that solves the seller's problem, we do it all. And Jayla, you just asked my favorite question. Tadi, you want to answer this? Or should I?
Well, it's your favorite question. How could I take it from you?
She has a great question. I guess that's my favorite question, but it's a great question. It's 90 days and 90 deals in 90 days possible. Anything you put your mind to is possible. If you think whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I know we can do 90 deals in 90 days. Shoot, we already have what?
It's today day 4 or 5 officially.
Today's day 4.
Today's day 4. Whew. Why? This day going by so slow.
Today's day 5. Today may be day 5, but
It's
I think I messed up the title.
okay if it's day 4 or if it's day 5. We definitely have. We're more than on track.
Yeah.
Because in those 4 or 5 days, we've got like 6 deals. It's 90 deals. So we're aiming for 90 closed deals for sure. Closed.
Say that again.
We're aiming for 90 closed deals.
90 closed
Closed,
deal. Yeah.
not
Do you have
contract.
any? Nah, not contracts.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, Jay. So to answer Jay's question, yeah, that's closed deals.
Closed deals.
It's a deal a day. And then sometimes, do 2 deals. So then, because every deal is not going to close, of course. So some days you need 2 contracts, but 1 contract a day. And it's JV deals too. Like you guys drop the JV link, Daryl, please. People have been putting in these JV deals. Some of them are actually good. I know Daryl started off by saying some of them are bad, but some of them are really good too. So keep bringing those. That's a part of the 90 deals. We're trying to help 90 deals get done, not just do 90 deals itself. Like within our own pipeline, we're doing deals, but we're talking about everybody. We want to help you guys do deals, all virtual, all nationwide. There's a system for finding buyers in every state. So if you guys have a good deal, we'll find the buyers. We follow our dispo system. We'll find a buyer within 3 or 4 days. And buyers are usually 15 to 21 day close. We just got a deal. Someone walked it last Thursday. They're going to close on Monday. That's a 10-day close. It's common. If it's a good deal, we're going to find that 10, 15, 20-day close buyer and do these deals.
Let's go, Q. Got a deal today while in the virtual office. Let's go, man. Shout
Oh,
out
where's
to
my
you.
bell? Oh, I don't have the bell here.
You got your bell?
What is
Let's
that? A
go,
bottle?
Q. Yeah. And nah, for real, we really are all virtual. I've been begging Toddy to let it to pull a list in Phoenix so I can pull up to some properties. And she's like,
Oh, let's
oh,
Phoenix. No, I mean, somebody's gonna be doing what you do though while you're out on houses.
nah, for real. But yo, that's it for day 4 or 5, whatever, whichever one you want it to
Well, we're
be.
open something late, man. I'm tired.
You tired? What's that mean? Hey,
Like
tired, baby. We ain't
it's
tired,
a
baby. It's time to go. It's time to put some more work in. Look, we will see y'all tomorrow. We don't know what time. Whenever we done putting that work in and making shit happen throughout the day. Toddy, you have any final words for us before we wrap this up today?
you like this, Daryl.
Look,
No,
we'll catch y'all tomorrow.
thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you guys. See y'all tomorrow.